Did you know that long before Columbus, a different story might have been unfolding in the Americas? What if I told you that ancient texts and archaeological studies suggest the presence of African people on this continent centuries, even millennia, before the arrival of Europeans? This isn't just a theory. It's a puzzle pieced together from some fascinating and often overlooked historical accounts. Let's dive into some incredible sources. A book called Archaeological and Ethnographic Studies by Carlos Cuervo Marquez presents a bold idea. He suggests that before the rise of the well-known indigenous groups like the Pampas, Andean and Caribbean peoples, much of the Americas may have been inhabited by people of what he describes as a Negroid type. Imagine that. He argues that when the Spanish conquerors arrived, they encountered scattered tribes across the New World that they immediately identified as belonging to the black race. These weren't just isolated encounters. They were noted from the very beginning of the colonial era. This isn't just one author's opinion. We can cross-reference this with official documents. Take, for instance, a United States House document from 1907, specifically from the Industrial Commission Report of Agriculture and Labor. It mentions another scholar, Quatrefages, and his work on the human race. Quatrefages was convinced that African people lived in the Americas, particularly on the islands, long before Columbus ever set sail. He wasn't just guessing. He was asserting this as a historical fact based on the evidence available to him at the time. The document gets even more specific. It talks about a particular indigenous group known as the Yamasee. These people were renowned for being some of the fiercest warriors in the South. But here's the twist. The report states directly that the Yamasee Indians were Africans. Let that sink in for a moment. A well-known Native American tribe, described in a government report as being of African origin. This completely changes the picture we've been taught in school, doesn't it? So what does this all mean? It means that the history of the Americas is far more complex and interconnected than we often believe. The idea of a purely isolated New World, waiting to be discovered, is being challenged by these historical accounts. Instead, we see a picture of ancient connections, of people moving and settling across the globe in ways we are only just beginning to understand. These texts suggest that there were waves of migration and settlement that predated the ones we are familiar with. The presence of people described as Negroids by early explorers and scholars isn't just a footnote. It could be a central part of the ancient American story. It forces us to ask new questions. Who were these people? Where did they come from? And what happened to their civilizations and their stories? This information isn't meant to replace one history with another, but to add layers and depth to our understanding. It shows that the human story is one of constant movement, interaction, and shared heritage. The separation of continents and peoples is a more recent idea than we think. For much of human history, the oceans were highways, not barriers. The existence of these accounts, from scholarly books to government documents, encourages us to be curious and to keep digging. History is not a closed book. It's an ongoing investigation. As we uncover more evidence and re-examine old sources with fresh eyes, we get a richer, more accurate picture of our collective past. It is a reminder that there are always more stories to be told and more truths to be uncovered. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into a hidden chapter of history. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.